Guys, what if God gave you everything you always wanted and desired in life, but that still wasn't enough? You felt empty. And what if the biggest breakthrough in your life isn't coming through success, but rather through surrender? It wasn't my game plan, but that's exactly how God rewrote my story. And I want to go back and kind of share how that started and bring you full circle to where we are now. I grew up in Valhalla, New York. I was one of 8 kids. Mom and Dad were like Easter and Christmas parents, and really didn't understand my faith. They had me go through confirmation class when I was in 8th grade. And I remember coming out of there. I don't remember getting confirmed, but I remember Diane DeLisa, the hot cheerleader that sat across from me. Sorry, God. And so, they were trying to expose me and learn about it. And literally, probably about a month after that, I'll never forget this day, July 7th, 1968. It was a Sunday. We were at home. And my dad started not feeling well. He went and sat in front of an air conditioner. My mom started to call the pharmacist, who was a friend. Then she called the doctor. Then she said, as my dad got worse and he started to pass out, we had to take him and put him in the back of our Country Squire station wagon. I was 13 years old. I was a Boy Scout working on my star badge. And I was in the back seat trying to give my dad mouth-to-mouth resuscitation as we took him to the hospital. The hospital was about 2 miles away. And we got there, and it was like one of those scenes you see on TV. They take him out, they put him on a gurney, they put him behind the sheet, and you hear beep, 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 nothing. And I mean, it makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck thinking about it. The doctor came out and he said, "I'm sorry, your dad didn't make it." 13 years old and trying to process that. And then 2 years later, I had a 4-year-old brother who drowned in a lake accident. And then fast forward a few more years, I had a brother who was captain of the baseball team at West Point. His name was David. He was the best athlete in the family. I was pretty good, but he was amazing. He was getting ready to graduate, and we were all supposed to go up to the ceremony. And 2 weeks before he was supposed to graduate, coming home from a baseball game, he was a passenger in a car accident, and David is killed in the car accident. So instead of going up to West Point to celebrate his graduation, we went up to memorialize his passing. And they had asked us if any of us wanted to get up and say anything at the service, and I was like, I've never spoken in front of people before. And literally in the middle of the service, it was like something you see in a movie again. It was like the night before, they had the whole Corps of Cadets come out in the quadrangle and have a moment of silence, and then they played taps. The next day, they had the service at the chapel right on the Hudson River. And I remember the casket coming out, draped in American flag. There were probably 1,000 people there, cadets, friends, and family. And they said, do you want to speak? And I just didn't want to do it. In the midst of the service, after hearing some of the people get up and say some stuff about my brother, it was like somebody just pulled me up out of my seat, and I walked up to the front of the room, and I said, I've done a lot of things with my brother. I've played football. I was his coach. We played, we laughed, we cried, but I never told my brother that I loved him. And guys, if I can leave you with anything today, don't let a day go by that you don't let the people that mean the most to you know that you love them. Not just thinking about it, but actually saying it and doing it. So anyway, I grew up kind of angry and from all of this, and literally sports became my little G God. I played basketball. Football was really my sport in high school and college. And then my senior year of college, I got opening kickoff against Boston University, hit in the head, knocked out, total amnesia, in the hospital for 5 days. I still have a 5-month window where I don't have any memory, and literally had to take a leave of absence from school. And I replaced my little G football sports god with what I call my sex, drugs, rock and roll era, where I just wanted to kill the pain of these losses that I've had in my life. And I went through that process until I met my wife, my future wife. Her name is Indy. I met her at ladies' night at Big Daddy's Lounge down in Daytona Beach. True story. She didn't like me at first, but I grew on her. Our second date, I asked her, I said, what do you want to do with your life? And she says, I want to have 4 kids before I'm 30. I want to get my master's in 5 years, and I want to get my doctorate in 10. She goes, what do you want to do? I looked at, true story, I looked at her and said, I think I want to marry you. And 9 months later, we were married, and we moved up here to Atlanta, and I opened up Champ Sports Shop in Lenox Square. I was one of the first non-family co-owners of that store. And it was an interesting motto that the 2 original founders had. It went like this: if you do as I do and play by our rules, you too can write off a Ferrari red 308 GTI on the business. And what I came to find out was that playing by their rules meant I had to break everybody else's. And I always promised myself, when the opportunity came and I started my own company, I would do it differently and do it with high integrity. Another thing happened when we came to Atlanta. We met a guy named Brett Butler. Brett was in the minor leagues in the Brave system. In 1982, he was called up. Joe Torre was the coach. And Brett moved right next door to the apartment building we lived in Sandy Springs. And Brett, does anybody know Brett personally? He is a very outspoken Christian. He's, I'm from New York, but he was a pretty cocky, outspoken guy. And literally, we just befriended each other. Our wives actually became friends first. Women, it takes about 5 minutes to get a bond. Guys, it took me about 2 or 3 years to bond. But Brett would always ask me about my faith and talk to me about God. And it made me really feel uncomfortable. And then one day he said, Steve, if you died tonight, where would you wake up tomorrow? And I said, well, I'd wake up in heaven. He goes, why? I said, because. He goes, because why? I said, because I'm a good guy, I'm a good dad, I do good things, I'm an honest businessman. He goes, that's not how you get into heaven. And I kind of had Brett under a microscope from there. We were friends, but I had this, kind of wall up. Fast forward about 2 weeks, I'm sitting on the steps of my house that we just built. I'm married, I've got 4 healthy kids, I've got a successful business, and I'm literally crying and weeping because I have everything, but I have this emptiness inside that I don't know how to fill. I thought that, having kids and having a family and having a successful business were really going to motivate me, inspire me, and when I got there, it's like it was pretty empty. Not long after that, Brett and Eveline came over to our house, and we had dinner. And after dinner, I don't know what it is about professional athletes. When they're not playing their sport, they play games. They play cards, they play board games. And so I learned more games from Brett and his wife, and we were sitting there playing. He had just signed a contract with the San Francisco Giants for like $10.5 million. And back in the day, that was pretty good. Today, it's like a day's salary for those guys. And as we're sitting there, Brett is like complaining about how difficult it is to have a house in San Francisco and a house here. And, it's so tough with the money we're making. And I looked at him and I said, it's all this stuff I was always thinking about but never said to him. I looked at him and I said, Brett, it's easy for you to be a Christian. You make $3.5 million a year. And literally, Brett said, honey, call the babysitter. I think it's going to be a little late. It was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And literally, his wife and Brett shared their testimonies till 3 o'clock in the morning, at which point I surrendered, got down on my knees, and gave my life to Jesus Christ. Well, I'd like to say, everything was just rosy after that. Probably within 3 or 4 months, my brother and I started a company out in Seattle called Trillium Health Products. We marketed a product called the Juice Man Juicer. We grew the company from 0 to $100 million in 3.5 years. It was like every entrepreneur's dream come true. When I went out there, Brett said, you need to meet this guy. His name is Norm Evans. Norm Evans. Anybody know who Norm Evans is by chance? There's got to be some old guy that knows in here, right? What's that? Norm Evans was the starting right tackle on the undefeated 1971 Miami Dolphins. And he and his wife, Bobby, were the chair people of a ministry called Pro Athletes Outreach, which was a ministry to athletes to equip them to be a positive impact for Jesus Christ at home, at work, and in the community. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I've taken that tagline and applied it in a couple of other different ministries. Well, as PAO grew and I got exposed to more people and people were pouring into me, my faith grew. I learned about how to have a relationship with God and how to have a relationship with all the people around me, how to improve my marriage. And at the same time, my company was just going crazy. We went from my brother and I starting it to 250 people working with us. And at the time, we were written up in Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing privately held companies in the United States, nominated by Inc. magazine as Entrepreneur of the Year. And I remember standing in a Starbucks the day after the article came out, and I'm standing in line and there's like 10 people in front of me. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if these people know who they're getting ready to serve. And you know what they say in the Bible, that pride comes before the fall, and we fell pretty hard. We went from the fastest growing company to the fastest shrinking company, and literally for the next year, managed the company, took us down from 250 people to a core people, about 10 people. We eventually sold the company for pennies, on the dollar for what it was originally being marketed for. And in the process, I learned a couple of things. I had been tithing more money than I had ever made before in the process of the company growing. And I was like, come on, God, you and me, you keep taking care of me, I'll take care of you. And what I learned through the process was that God doesn't want my money and he doesn't want your money. God wants our hearts, because when he has our hearts, everything else comes with it. I also learned that the most important things in life were the things that money can't buy: your faith, your family, and your friends. I remember in the height of our success, companies were sending their corporate jets to, schmooze us because they wanted to do business with us. And when the company started going downhill, they all disappeared. The CEOs wouldn't take my phone calls. The magazines stopped coming around and taking my picture. But you know who was still there? The Brett Butlers, the friends, the true friends that know everything about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they're still there to love on you and help you and encourage you. And the other part was my family. All the people that were there before the success were still there after the success. So don't lose sight on, again, those things that are just so important in life. If it wasn't for Brett, he always reminds me of 2 Timothy 1:7, that God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but rather of power, love, and self-discipline. If it wasn't for his boldness and his courage, his love for God and his love for me, I might not be standing here right now. But somebody stepped out in faith and took what somebody had mentored them and taught them and applied it, and the ripple effect has just continued to pass on. My son is Brett is his godfather. I'm Brett's son's godfather. And it's just amazing to see that ripple effect when men pour into other men like you guys have been doing here for so long. I thought I was taken to Seattle for the business opportunity. And when I look back and reflect on it, God was in control of this the whole time. I remember before I made the decision to go to Seattle, I was working for another company here, and my brother kept saying, I need you to come out here, I need you to come out here. And I said, I can't. I've got 4 young kids, 6 and under. I'm making maybe $50,000 a year. I live 1.5 miles from my house. And I'm like, God, you need to show me what you need me to do. Please show me. And I kept praying that prayer. And then finally one day I said, God, I need you to hit me over the head with a 2x4 and show me with no uncertain terms what you want me to do. You know what happened the next day when I walked into work? I got fired. Went home, I said, Indy, God answered our prayer. I got on a plane. And for the next 1.5 years, I commuted back and forth between Seattle until we got the company going. And then we moved the whole family out there. I love this quote from Oswald Chambers that God does not give us an overcoming life. God gives us life as we overcome. We can't sit there and wallow in it, men. We have to take action. We have to do something. We have to surround ourselves with other men that can walk us through it. And what I've found is that everything we experience in life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, when we surrender it to God, it becomes the greatest and best opportunity to help somebody else going through some of the things that you've gone through once you've gone through it. My simple prayer now is, dear God, block it or bless it. I don't do anything until that prayer is answered one way or the other. Hopefully, God doesn't need to hit me over the head with a 2x4 anymore, but again, just being still and listening and surrendering to Him has really defined my life. And I've spent most of my life now working with individuals and organizations, not just to make money, but to make a difference, to make an impact. And we can all make a difference in the world. You know, I'm not a big advocate, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on. Things aren't going to change in D.C. Things are going to change in this room because you and I take action and stand up for what we believe and take our God-given gifts and talents and use them in the world one person at a time to change it for the better. I always tell people that our job is not to tell other people how much they need Jesus Christ in their life. Our job is to tell other people and show other people how much we need Jesus Christ in our life. They can listen to you. We all have a story. People can poo-poo the Bible. They can poo-poo religion. They can't poo-poo your story. And when you share your story, no matter where you are, again, I'm standing here because somebody took the time to share their story. And so many men in this room have poured into me and helped me in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Chris Sr., one of those guys. Walking out of Mark Christopher's funeral, I had just gotten to know him and was a pallbearer at his service. And walking out of the cemetery, this guy comes up and puts his arm around me. And he goes, "Hey, any friend of Mark Christopher needs to be a friend of mine. When can you get coffee?" And that's how I met Chris Sr. And he poured into me. I ended up on the executive board of this organization and have been working on and off with them. And it's just been a godsend for the men that I've met through the process. I want to close with a story. I have 4 overachieving kids. My daughter Whitney is an ER doctor now, but in high school she was captain of the cross country team at Westminster. And I don't know if you've ever watched cross country, but you pretty much see them run into the woods and run out of the woods. They had a regional meet, and they had 7 other schools there. And like at the end, they had like this chute. They just went from wider, and they brought you down, so everybody had to finish going through 4 slots. And Whitney wasn't the fastest person. She was the captain of the team because she had an amazing attitude. She wasn't the prototypical runner. She weighed about 150 pounds, but she was just an amazing leader. And she said, "Dad, I want to break my personal record today," which means she had to do a sub 23. And the girls that win those things were doing 16 and 17 minutes. So she goes out. We saw her go into the woods. She comes out of the woods. She's coming down the chute. We're yelling for her, and we could see she was going to break her record. She crosses the finish line, falls down, passes out, and we can't get to her until about 5 or 10 minutes later, and she's in the medical tent just a couple hundred yards away. And I walked up to her, and I got down on my knee, and I held her hand. I said, "Whitney, are you okay?" And this is what she said to me. She said, "Dad, if I don't pass out when I cross the finish line, I feel like I didn't leave it all on the course." Let me repeat that. "Dad, if I don't pass out when I cross the finish line, I feel like I didn't leave it all on the course." So men, in your race to become the men that you're striving to become and that God desires you to be, my parting words are, leave it all on the course. In whatever God has positioned you to do here and now, give it everything you got and make it happen. And let's go. Do it. Thank you, guys.